How's it going, species? Welcome to a brand new Flash Season 5 Episode 2 review and breakdown. Solid episode, I believe. It obviously wasn't as strong as the first, but that doesn't mean like every episode has to be freaking amazing. But the important thing I want to focus upon here is that it wasn't like another Season 4 episode that I tended to be quite underwhelmed and disappointed with. And this episode had so many cool things in it, like the introduction of Cicada, some awesome Speed Force fighting effects, but you know, we'll get to that when we get to that. And yeah, as I said, holy crap, that ending though. Like, I don't want to say that like with the Arrow episode as well and now this one, but both shows seem to have pulled off some kind of unexpected moments at the end. But before we get into this breakdown and review, guys, be sure to subscribe to this channel for more Flash reviews and information updates and everything comic book nerdy like this. And do go ahead and like the video if you do enjoy it. So first thing is first, Cicada versus Gridlock. That was really cool. The episode started off with Gridlock absolutely getting rinsed by Cicada. Obviously, we haven't seen too much of him yet. You don't want to jump the gun. But all of us were wondering what Chris Klein was going to be like, how intimidating, or, you know, what was Cicada's presence going to feel like on the screen? Would he feel like, you know, a whole season-long villain? I thought he was really, really cool because, you know, Cicada doesn't really do anything but breathe and then just acts. You know, Chris Klein's, it's all about the eyes. For example, a lot of you may be aware of Tom Hardy is quite known for his eyes. He portrays, Christopher Nolan has said one time, like, he loves how he portrays so much emotion or acting or like everything in his eyes that he doesn't even need voice lines before. Now, I'm not trying to put Chris Klein up on a pedestal, but obviously that's what Cicada requires to give off, you know, emotion and what he's wanting out of that scene, and that is exactly what he did. And I feel like that seriously portrayed itself in that ending scene with like Nora rushing in, but I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, that lightning bolt daggy, as I mentioned before in where there was a trailer breakdown, it seems like you throw it like a freaking boomerang, which I love, kind of like Mjolnir, you know, like Thor's hammer has. I love that. Or just like if you play God of War, just like get the freaking thing back. And from what we learned kind of from the end of the episode, but I'll dig into this more then too, does it like temporarily absorb the powers? Because Gridlock's powers went. At the time I thought, oh, does it just freaking absorb the powers? That's a bit OP, but I think it must temporarily do it, otherwise, yeah, you'd be kind of screwed. Other than that, we actually got to see something that I didn't expect to see so soon. We saw Chris Klein actually, like, you know, in his kind of normal job, and I think he's like a janitor or something. But the interesting thing here is that we saw that Cicada doesn't require that mask. So apart from creating that cicada insect sound, what purpose does it serve? I really want to know that. And lastly, from what we actually saw from Chris Klein, or Cicada's actual face without the costume on, I thought he was quite intimidating, and he really gave off that presence of a lot of angst that he's got built up, almost like complete hatred. Obviously he wants to kill the metahumans. We're going to find that out soon. Has to do something with his family or his daughter, something that must have happened to them to do with metas. But when he slammed that locker shut, I was like, okay, man, I'm getting good vibes off you, so I can't wait to see more from you. Next most interesting thing that happened was Barry and Nora revealing a 2049 article to Team Flash. Iris was quite interestingly optimistic about it. I definitely think that she was kind of freaking out on the inside, but her way of coping with it is just like, you know, we'll deal with it as when the future comes, we'll sort it out then. But I was like, well, really, you kind of want to sort it out beforehand, because if the future's already come, you won't really be able to do anything about it there and then, because Barry would be gone. You kind of need to try and prevent it beforehand, kind of thing. I did really enjoy this scene. As I said in my trailer breakdown for this, I would have liked to have seen Ralph or Cisco make a comment about what the actual article, you know, states in terms of how Batwoman was there, or Elongated Man was there, or something like that. Now, as for Cecile in this episode, I'm not like the most huge fan of like these parts or like screen time, but I don't really find anything wrong with it as a whole. I definitely see the plot makes sense at the same time though, because Joe has someone he's with now, who he has a daughter with. Why would Cecile not be there if they have a baby? You can't really write her out of the show saying, oh, she's blah 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 gone away with the baby, unless they broke up or something, and that's not happening. So she's freaking out about losing her powers in this episode, which is understandable. Imagine if you connected with your baby and you knew everything it wanted, you would think that you're the perfect mum. Now, as for Cisco, and I guess this leads in with the humor and everything in this episode, first I want to say, like, the humor, I actually quite enjoyed it. I felt like if it would have gone a bit more slightly eccentric, it would have reminded me of a season 4 thing, because it was quite silly, but it was definitely toned down. Ralph wasn't acting like he was in season 4, but the actual situation was funny that they were in. For example, Cisco was obviously finding it hard to get over Gypsy because of like their unique powers, like Vibe, Vibe being Vibe and Gypsy having the same abilities. They kind of resonate with each other in a weird way still. So like Cisco can still smell her and other things like the Book of Ralph was pretty funny. That Cisco kind of had that makeover moment where it's like, if you cut my hair, like I all found that kind of humor pretty awesome. Now as for Block, the meta of the week, I was just like, yeah, she's cool, but like, you know, with a lot of metas of the week in the Flash, I feel like not necessarily underwhelmed or anything, but I don't just expect too much from them, because some of them just aren't like, they're not the main villains at the end of the day, right? So I guess I do enjoy them, and Block was pretty cool with her abilities. She can literally turn people into little meat blocks, you know, like kill them and they turn into a little cube of meat, which is crazy. With I think Cisco called it air squares, which made me laugh. As a result of this meta-human storyline this episode though, it made Nora really bring out her eagerness, and she kind of forced her way as an intern into like the crime scene investigation. And naturally we have plenty of that eagerness with Nora this episode, because what we can't forget is that she is quite a rookie speedster, and I'll get onto more of that in a second, but there was a lot of Nora noobiness, shall I say. Now let's talk about Iris for a second. It's really cool to actually see her get into her reporter roots, even though it's just for a blog at the minute. She was naturally like following the trail, I think unbeknownst to her, of Cicada. So after learning that Gridlock got murdered, she went and found a person who was hospitalized after, you know, the whole event of what we saw at the beginning of the episode, where Cicada opened that door and then obliterated everyone. Now luckily Iris has got a boyfriend who works in the CCPD, so she got access to the database, and she saw some like security footage or like, you know, CCTV or something of that moment, and that is when she was just like, what the hell. Obviously at the time she doesn't know it's Cicada, but most prominently from this footage was that cicada insect noise, which links in with the episode quite later on. But overall I really liked this Iris stuff. All I want to see her do this season long is do exactly what she did this episode. It gave her quite a bit of screen time. She was very handy as well, and it just kind of makes her very comic book accurate rather than, I don't know, what we had last season. Now going back to Nora and Barry for a minute in this episode, we had that moment, or the first moment, where they faced off against Block, shall I say, and Nora's over eagerness got the better of her because Barry just wanted her to scan the perimeter, and she just went, nah, I could do something better, and she got completely obliterated and nearly got herself killed if it wasn't for Barry, you know, slowing down the air square, or whatever you want to call it. What we saw in the trailer as well, with Barry teaching her the ways of the Speed Force, which led to more over-eagerness because she got way over her head again and then freaking ran round and then summoned a lightning bolt, which was meant to impress Barry but ended up hitting Barry. I actually really love seeing these scenes between Nora and Barry. I think we all know that they're going to be like the highlight of this season, that relationship. The chemistry between Grant Gustin and Jessica Parker Kennedy is great as well. Now, we got a couple of touching moments this episode, not only between like Cisco and Caitlin, which I'll get onto later, because I love scenes like that, because, you know, like OG Team Flash stuff. We got words of wisdom from Papa Joe himself to Barry, because she was just like, she doesn't listen to anything I say, blah, 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 blah. And then he was just like, well, it's because she looks up to you as a hero, and like Barry kind of did the same with trying to show off to Joe, I think, one time with a project that he made when he was younger. I don't know, I love scenes like that in The Flash. It's all to do with like the soundtrack at the same time in the background of those scenes. I just love the Flash soundtrack, and you don't often hear those particular like songs or whatever you would call it throughout the episode all the time, so those moments are always quite special. Now going back to Caitlin and the whole Cisco thing, obviously Caitlin kind of lost it temporarily about the whole death certificate inquiry because Cisco had had enough of the whole Ralph trying to make him feel better thing. And then, you know, this is where I really like that scene, as I mentioned a second ago. Caitlin was, you know, really, really good in this scene, or should I say Daniel Panabaker. She was, the acting was really on point, and it really made me feel sorry for her, but, you know, she's really in her own head about, you know, worry or fear of rejection, because she figures if he's been alive this whole time and he hasn't seen me, then I guess he didn't want to know me. And that was just really sweet. We've had scenes like this throughout the past 4 seasons, whatever. And I just really love Cisco and Caitlin moments like this. Cisco was, you know, that brother to her and tried to make her feel better about it, and said that you'll regret it if you don't. At least try and figure it out, right? So yeah, awesome scene. One of my favorites in the whole episode. Now, I'm sure plenty of you picked this up, but does anyone remember like Nora cringing at that moment when Iris said something like, go West, Team West Allen, or something like that? It just makes me think, was that just a cringy mum moment, or is there still more to the whole, you know, Iris and Nora relationship. I would love to know your thoughts about this. Now, guys, we're getting to the seriously juicy stuff of the episode. Oh my god, I loved all of this stuff. There was some unexpected elements, but let's start off with the beginning, and that is when it was like Flash and XS versus Block. Some really cool slow motion, like speedster scenes and like freaking backflip or whatever it was from Nora. It was down to XS, a really cool heroic moment there. I loved how Jessica Parker Kennedy kind of portrayed that newbie speedster moment where it's like, oh, like, I'm on the spot now. Barry's like, you know, stuck. My dad's stuck. I need to do something. But then Cicada freaking impales Block. Did anyone see that coming? I actually didn't. I think I was just so absorbed in the moment of what the team did with the flash effects for Nora, or should I say, you know, XS, that when the freaking lightning bolt dagger came through like a collarbone, that was really cool. Like, as mentioned earlier, we had the whole Mjolnir freaking boomerang throw from Cicada, which, you know, landed in the floor and it deactivates the powers. Now, we did learn from Cisco later on, well, no, actually in that moment, that it negates their powers. So they do get them back. And this moment was just so cool because these heroes without their powers, like, sure, they're heroic still because they had the bravery of a hero, but, you know, Barry isn't like a vigilante trained like Oliver Queen. Neither are Ralph and Cisco. So when they were going hand to hand with Cicada, who I'm sure isn't like an assassin kind of trained person either, they weren't that great, you know. They got absolutely rinsed by Cicada. But guys, the most important moment in this fight scene is when Barry was literally about to get stabbed because Cicada could have easily, if you saw it yourself, could have easily killed Barry. But it's when Nora shouts, "Dad," he stops and then looks at her, and this is what I mean about Chris Klein's acting, because it went from fierce to almost like empathetic, really, because he was almost like, I don't want to kill your dad. And we all know, well, I don't know if we all know this, but at least in my interpretation, is that Chris Klein, obviously from the trailer, he was walking into his daughter's room. When Nora shouted "Dad," I think he couldn't go through with killing, even though he hates metas and wants to kill them all. It's too almost like sentimental or familiar of his own daughter, and he didn't want to kill Nora's father and leave her fatherless, just like how he's been left family less, you know, without his daughter. For me, what makes this scene so impactful is that the Flash could quite have literally died there and then, and that is big stuff. So after this, when they were back at S.T.A.R Labs, Caitlin was doing a little dark matter scanner thing on Cisco's hand, because if you remember, it got cut by the dagger, so there'd be some kind of energy reading that she could pick up, and that was off the charts Dark Force energy readings. So that dagger is completely leaking with Dark Force. Why did I call it Dark Force? Dark matter energy. And that's really interesting to know, and you'd have to think that's because it's linked to the whole satellite thing, but I'm sure we're going to learn more about that and Cicada's powers very soon. But in this moment as well, Cisco vibed Caitlin. And now what I'm going to say here is that we can't assume that that was Caitlin's mum freaking writing down, you know, the death certificate thing. I don't think she could even do that anyway, but that doesn't mean that she didn't orchestrate, because then we saw actual image of, you know, Caitlin's mother's face, as if like she's responsible for that person writing that death certificate. So naturally, the next step in Killer Frost storyline will be to, you know, ask her mother about what the heck she has to do with this death certificate. Now, this led to Iris actually showing that security footage she had earlier of the cicada insect noise, and that's what they were saying. It sounds like an insect, and then Nora was just like, as they were all about to say, you know, cicada. And then that insinuates that Nora knows who this guy is, but it's all gone completely kind of wrong. Because first of all, if you have to think about it this way, Gridlock's dead. And in the future, Nora is evidently faced off against him or knows about him, because in the first episode, she was just like, oh, come on, it's just Gridlock or something like that. So obviously, it wasn't meant to die now. He was meant to go to prison in like the normal timeline, but Nora coming back, I'm thinking Cicada definitely was something of the future. I'm thinking a lot more than just Gridlock of a villain, but, you know, probably would naturally get stopped by the Flash or just, you know, whatever. But now things are going wrong. Timeline is changing, and she knows who he is, and he's obviously has some presence in her mind, because she seemed intimidated when she said Cicada's villainous name. This could be where they bring, you know, Sherlock Wells in, and like, because more mistakes are going to follow through this, maybe caused by Cicada, but originally caused through Nora coming back in time. You can get so timey-wimey with this. But other than that, guys, this episode was really good. As I said, not like a solid like episode like the first one, but that first one was designed to be like the best one since, you know, the season 1 premiere. But, you know, as a second episode or as a casual episode, you know, kind of going into the season of like, what, 22 episodes or more, I can't remember. It was more than Good. But guys, if you enjoyed this video and you enjoyed my review and breakdown, be sure to leave a like on it, hit that thumbs up button. It only takes 2 seconds of your time, and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more Flash videos, trailer breakdowns, news updates, and everything cool and nerdy like this on the channel. Links, as always, are in the description down below to like my social media if you want to follow me on Twitter and other ways to support me like Patreon. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you speedsters in the next video. Goodbye.